Welcome back to Let's Just Do This. I'm Todd Miller, along with Margaret Wallace-Duffy on your TV in Halton Region. And welcome to 2018.
Yes, it's been a great kickoff to the new year, and we're really excited to be bringing all kinds of great content your way in this new year.
Exactly, and that is by no means what we're doing today. We actually have Michael Ballard, Michael H. Ballard, who I've known for quite a few years. And
we met when we were 12?
Something like that. And I first ran into you at something called Mo Mondays,
Yes.
which is Motivational Mondays, and a wonderful event for people just to hear other people's stories. I witnessed your story, and we're going to get to that in a second. I just want to read a little bit from your bio. It's not every day you meet an entrepreneur who decided to start a business while he's in the midst of fighting a very serious illness. We're going to get to that. Yet that's exactly what you did. You had to start a company that would become Resiliency for life, and we're going to talk a lot about resiliency.
Yes.
And whether it's something that's born and bred in us or something that can be taught, and I have a feeling it can be taught. You've had to fight for your life 3 times.
Yes.
Not just once, not twice, but 3, and hopefully that's it, no more. Your upbeat message is about taking responsibility for where you are in your life, and that's something a lot of people don't do. They look to blame. And I want to get into that as well. We can choose to live resiliently to make it very powerful, positive impact on our relationships, educational path, our career, health, and happiness. Michael H. Ballard, welcome to the show.
It is great to be here. Thank you.
So what is your story? Give us a 30,000-foot view of your...
At 6, I got a concussion. So you're in the hospital at 6 years old with a headache that's this big, bigger than big. Feels like you got 5 basketballs trying to bust out of your brain. And you're 6. Then they wake you up every hour because I'm old enough that x-rays were all they had back then. And so they want to make sure that the eyeballs are not dilating so there's no internal bleeding. And after a few hours, another young gentleman shows up who's also had a concussion. Now, as an adult, I realized that his response was normal. But as a 6-year-old, I didn't know that you could either become quiet because of the headache and everything hurts, everything's too bright, too loud, or you can become agitated, yell, scream, and shout. I was in awe that people would yell, scream, and shout. So when I get home and I'm healed, it left a burned impression in my brain that 2 people having a very similar to identical occurrence could have polar opposite responses. Like, wow, that's phenomenal. And luckily I was raised not to judge. I just knew the screaming made my head hurt. So I didn't want to be around them. So that got me started at 6. Normally at 6, we don't think about other people's responses. It's just me. And then I had a chronic illness at 17 where the doctor with good intentions said there's nothing you can do. And in my family, you're not allowed to say there's nothing you can do after the initial shock wears off. And I quickly found there was research to say that people with chronic illness that practice certain skills could have 20% less issues. Not a cure, but anytime you can tell me that I can have a 1/5 less problems with my health by practicing a few key skills every day, I went, I'm in, and it can't do any harm, and it might help mental acuity and make life more fun. So that's got me going, and then, well, I had my cancer journey, and that was a 7-year off and on again issue, and I got told by one healthcare provider that I was the happiest, sickest guy he'd ever met. What was wrong? And I said, well, I know I could die in 6 weeks, but I'm going to live till I die, not fade away till I die.
Mm-hmm.
And
Good way to look at it.
that's, and then I had other things. My daughter, who's healthy now, had a brain tumor, and we were told that she was the happiest, sickest kid they had in the hospital at the time out of 250 kids, and what had we done to her? And I said, we didn't do anything to her. We did things with her. We encouraged her to understand that there's more than one way to deal with having a brain tumor. That was her issue. And we had a little ceremony where she became a princess warrior at 7. Went to the hair salon, got an undercut for where the surgery would be, and the stylist, they gave her a little pedicure, manicure, let's get this right. Yeah, no feet were involved. And they sent her off wishing her the well. And it's amazing with what a few skills can do to help us cope and thrive despite what you're going through. It might not change the ending, but it can change the quality of the experience and often changes the outcomes. So there's your thumbnail.
Yeah, wow. And thank you for sharing your story. And clearly you insert humor, which I know, we say
Yes.
laughter is the best medicine. But having the ability to share your story candidly like that, and to just candidly say cancer, and you struggled with
It was scary.
depression,
Oh,
and all of those things, because we've had a short discussion, you and I. What I love about the way that you've shared that is with a little bit of humor, but more importantly, with the mindset and the action. not only have you helped to change your life, but you've had an impact on this precious daughter of yours, which for me as a mother, that is incredible. And I think for everybody at home, we're here to talk about resiliency because all of you have asked us to do this. Being resilient, what does that mean?
Well, the traditional definition is bouncing back. And that's a good place to start, but I don't believe it's enough. Because resiliency, I've got 2 chronic illnesses, and at least a couple of researchers are a little mystified that at one point I went 3 years with no symptoms of one illness, and they were like, well, what are you doing? Because under the microscope, I donate tissue samples to be part of the research groups because my quality of life is exceptional, and I think it's important that we build on what those that have gone before us have done.
Yes.
So I don't like to take a day off work to be poked and prodded, but it's important, so you do. And so I talk about, well, the Harvard Medical School mind-body research says the following, so I'm doing what I can do to follow it. It's free, it's publicly accessible, and I took the Shaolin Kung Fu, which helps tie in. It's very similar, the same. Ancient wisdom, new wisdom. It all ties together, and it's free. It's 20 minutes a day, and it pays dividends, so you do it.
Love that. Love that.
So you've got this thing called resiliency, and probably when you first started becoming aware of it, you weren't aware of what it was. It was
No.
a question, why am I having a different reaction than that person is, and why is this person so successful, and why am I getting these doctors telling me I'm so healthy? When did it coalesce into, this is something that I can take and transfer that knowledge to someone else?
Excellent. I was in a cancer ward in Halifax in a hospital called the Halifax Infirmary. It tells you the location. And I got a call, the head nurse came in and said, we know you're having a good day and we're asking for some help. The psychiatric ward's having a bad day. You've been asking for a piano to play, for an outlet. They have a piano. They're having a bad day. It's not an emergency bad day. It's just a bad day. It's glum. To use your words, it's glum. Cool. I get to play the piano. I don't play well, but I like to engage in piano because it's great outlet for frustrations.
Yeah.
So I went up and played. And it was like, I might not live in 6 months. These people are having their own issues. We're helping each other.
Oh, I love that.
And so I still get misty thinking about it because somewhere in the 4th or 5th time, I got to go up and was invited. I never asked to go up. I always waited to be invited because who am I to interfere with their healing? One of the gentlemen, I don't know, was 20s like me at the time. I was 27. Michael, we've been talking about you, and we all get to go home eventually, and we're really concerned you might not. I said, well, I'm going to graduate. I'm just not sure whether it's going to be in a physical form and healed, or I believe I'm going to have an emotional healing before I leave this place if I physically die. Oh, you can do that? I said, I'm working on it, baby. I'm working on it. I refuse to stay stuck.
Right, right.
So there was a big light bulb moment that God bless the healers in all the forms, the social worker, the psychologist, the psychiatrist, and the medical team. But there was not a lot of programming unless you were dying. And I was on the iffy column.
Right,
So
right.
that was,
So you definitely found there was something lacking.
that's when I went, I can do this. From all my training, from my family life, my school, my career, when there's a gap, you find a solution. No excuses, you find a gap.
Exactly. So empowering to hear your story and to have you share that you're not doing this alone, you know, that you're doing it with others, and for yourself, which is so important. It's such an important message. Would you agree, and I'm sure that I know the answer to this, that this is a lifelong process?
Yes, we're all on a journey, if you will, but it's a process. And I have to remember some days that I'm not doing it as well as I could. And some days I have to be careful, to quote one of my mentors, that I don't hang out with others that aren't doing it at all. And you can love them, you can like them, but that doesn't mean you have to spend 7 and 24 with certain people. Maybe you're related to them. Maybe there's somebody you care about, but you can't stay with them because the judgment word might be toxic or difficult. Because I have a couple of relatives I love deeply, over 85, but I don't want to go there to have to arm wrestle every point about life being nasty, because I don't need to be beat over the head that if I just stayed in school for an extra year, if I'd have just married this person instead of this, whoa,
Yep.
I don't do it to them, but they seem to want to do it to me.
There's a lot of judgment in there.
There is, and I think, that story just in itself, so many people are going to relate to that. And it doesn't mean that you don't love them, and it doesn't mean, but we are in control of our own actions and our health.
So you engage them on terms that suit you. So I write them letters. In this day and age, I can write a letter, or a picture letter, as I call it, to a couple of relatives and mail it off 4 times a year, and they know they're loved, they know they're respected, and a couple of them are out of country, one's out of province, so that it's on my terms. That way I don't have to have those long-distance phone calls where I put up with a whole heap full of
Yeah.
less than nice behavior from people I love, but I don't like.
Yeah.
And that helps to pull down you and
Yeah.
your health and your mental
It's
health.
exhausting.
It is exhausting.
So I
It is exhausting.
send regards, and I find out through others that I'm the only one that's bothering to talk to them anymore. So they're isolated, but they're isolated themselves.
Right. Oh, boy. I think all of us have experiences like that in our lives that, make it a challenge, and we take it on. I certainly know myself, and getting to know you, when you're an empathetic person and you feel for others, you can take that on.
Your shoulders become broader.
Indeed.
Yes. And then
indeed.
eventually you start to stoop, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a progression, and being kind to ourselves through that, and finding practical strategies like the one that you just shared with all of us, writing a letter instead. There are ways that you can keep yourself safe and to build that resilience without making others feel like they're not loved.
Yes, because you don't want to tell them that you think they're mean, violent, nasty, and have been their whole entire life, because that's not appropriate.
No, indeed.
So you love them for the food they served and the gifts they gave, and you acknowledge all that, and then you do it from a slight detached distance.
Absolutely. Here on Let's Just Do This, we're always looking for practical ways to help people, and you just gave one real practical, great example of how we can flex our resilience muscle. Your story, and everybody's story is different, but from health issues to mental health issues, and you've seemed to find ways. Just before the break, can you give us one, and we'll do more, but one practical thing that everyone can do at home that you're currently doing in your resilience tool chest that can help build resilience in others?
Sure. Now, this one's so basic, people think it's not important.
Right.
But one of the things we know is our body works with oxygen. And it's good old-fashioned, Todd's heard me say this because we've met a few times, belly breathing. Or,
Yes.
if you want to use the correct term, diaphragmatic
Diaphragmatic
breathing.
breathing.
But I work with 3-year-olds and 97-year-olds, and I actually got to work with a 101-year-old once. Belly breathing is the reality.
Yes.
Because we all have one. And whether it's a 6-pack ab or, like me, with some surgery, 2 small kegs,
Yes.
doesn't matter. And that's breathing in at the belly button and feeling it come out and a little down. It's supposed to come out and a little down when you inhale. And hold it for 4. And then let it out on 4. Don't do it while you're driving or moving and operating anything that's moving. Do it while seated, be calm. Some of us have blood pressure issues, high or low. Don't want a lawyer's letter saying, and then they fell down and broke your ankle. Too bad, so sad, you brought it on yourself. Be sitting, be
Right.
comfortable.
Yep.
Right. Yes.
It pays dividends, oxygenates the brain, lowers their blood pressure, slows down our heart rate. It's a beautiful skill.
It certainly is, and we've had other amazing guests like Dr. Rima Thapar on the show that have talked extensively about the science behind the breath and the importance it can serve both in pain as well as mental acuity and others. So thank you for that, for reaffirming
Yeah.
that's important.
It's a lifelong skill, and whether you're doing it at 3 years old, because I've worked with 3-year-olds who've been traumatized, or whether you're dealing with 97-year-olds who are not happy with their aging process,
Yes,
it's a way to calm down.
Indeed.
So then you can fight the fight with better clarity.
you betcha. Well, Michael, I know we've got lots more to share, but we're going to take a quick break. So make sure you get your pen and paper and be clear and ready to listen to some of these ways that we can flex our resilience muscle here on Let's Just Do This. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Let's Just Do This. I'm Todd Miller on your TV, along with Margaret Wallace Duffy and the great Michael H. Ballard. I've known you for several years, and I know that you teach resiliency to people.
Yes.
Obviously, it's a learnable skill.
It is.
But what I want to know is, do you believe that some people are innately more resilient than others? And I want to ask you why you think that is so.
I would say yes, some people are more innately resilient than others, and that's based on personal, family, community, all the things we grow up around. But then it could be gender-based too. I worked with a gentleman who was 6'4", And he couldn't understand why some people were concerned about nighttime. It's dangerous. And as two of the ladies that were 4'9" said, you have no idea what it's like to be 89 pounds and having to walk home alone the last little bit after the bus. You were 6 foot something tall by grade 7. You have a blind spot. So they stopped working late after that or got taxi fare. Because he went, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to know these things. I never saw it. So we all have blind spots, and I grew up with a grandmother who was very good at, we'll call it emotional intelligence, reading you. Her social emotional skills were off the page. I'm not sure she could balance a checkbook, but it's not a character flaw because her social emotional skills were remarkable. And the men that she helped raise were, for the most part, way above average as parents, community leaders, husbands, fathers, uncles. I can vouch for the uncles part because they were mine. So what great gifts she helped develop in all of us in that capacity. Balance a checkbook? It was close.
Right. So you can help to teach resilience.
Yes.
And yes, some of us may be, or presumably look more resilient
Yes.
than others. But none of this happens without action.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely. Action is the key.
Yeah. So how do we link and as Todd said, how do we learn to improve our resiliency through our actions? And of course, we talked a little bit about mindset and the importance of that, how you recognized at a really young age that, oh, wait a minute, I see that this way, and this person who went through the exact same thing as I did sees it very much this way. Or in my world, I certainly see one person may experience grief in this way, another person experience grief so differently. They're not wrong. One
No.
isn't better than the other. They're just very different. But what I want to hear from you is how we help people to build that resilience that they might admire in looking at someone else through their action.
Right. Well, we've paid more attention in society the last few years about physical resilience.
Yes.
And of course, for your podcasters, I'm reaching down to touch my toes, but I'm bending over. I'm on a chair. I joke about being able to touch my toes, but physical activity.
Yes.
And I have a family doctor who's 41 who goes, Michael, your chronological age is 63, but your body age is early 50s to mid 40s in some categories. What gym do you go to? What special foods are you eating? And I go, no gym, no special foods. I try to eat multigrains. I limit my alcohol intake, but I do like a good cold beer once a week.
Yes. Yes.
But I'm diabetic, so that conflicts with my medication. So to quote my doctor, it's a juggle.
Yep.
But I'm not going to give up beer. I'm just going to modest amounts. It's a half a beer over 2 days instead of 3 beers
Right.
in one day like when I was 30, because I could do it. So physical, but then there's emotional. What are we open to watching and learning and practicing and sharing?
Right.
I did some volunteering in a home for independent living for people who are on the path of dementia. They all know they have dementia. They all know that they're going to eventually go to more. But one of the guys, this gentleman, is 98, and he said, I got this far with most of my marbles. His words, not mine. I think I'll still have most of them for a couple more years, but maybe at 100 I'll lose them all. He's a bright light.
Yes.
I got to meet his daughter. This is my youngest. She's 69.
Yes.
So that was interesting because I got to meet people that can't remember who I am from the last trip, but I've learned to emotionally anchor my visits on what they did for a living or what their hobbies were, and they remember me as you're the guy that remembers that I was a baker.
Right. Right.
So I've always heard you anchor in music for people with dementia, and that's a powerful skill, but so that's taken me out of my comfort zones to be around people who say, who are you? Where are you from? Who are you? Where are you from? Why are you here? Every
The
10 minutes.
superficial stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is you take care of your physical well-being through exercise.
Exercise.
I know that you mentioned in the green room that you do meditative walking, which
Yes.
is fantastic. You now just made reference to socialization and helping with your mental health by helping others.
Sharing and caring is vital.
Absolutely.
It stretches me.
Yes, and these are actions that people need to actually take in
Yes.
order to help build their own resilience muscle.
And
Talking about
keep it in
isn't enough.
tone.
Yes,
Because just because you did it 10 years ago for 10 years doesn't mean after 10 years of not doing it, you still have it.
right.
It's capacity building.
Exactly. So there's something that's called framing and reframing.
Oh, boy.
Could you please tell all of us what that is and how it can be used in this discussion of resiliency for life?
So resiliency is helping overcome adversity. And with my chronic illnesses and my acute illnesses, I always define resiliency as improving the quality of the journey and possibly the outcomes But if you have terminal cancer and they only catch it at a certain stage, it's terminal
There's
for a
yeah,
reason.
there's an
But you can
inevitable.
still have resiliency and have a better quality experience. So I've changed my definition. So framing and reframing. I was blessed to have a neighbor who was a gifted math teacher, Mr. John Campbell. Hopefully he hears this one day. Because his gift was, he'd say to the class, now class, in the last pop quiz, there's 29 of you in the room. 20 of you passed. Thank you for listening. But some of you didn't. I would suggest that I believe the 9 that didn't pass did their best. Anybody want to disagree? Anybody not do their best? Good. I need another way to teach the 9 that didn't get it because I obviously didn't do well enough to teach it to you to make it stick. So wait a minute. You're owning the outcome as the teacher? It's not the pupil's fault they failed? Wow. My marks went up from 52 to 74.
Interesting.
So a resiliency teaching model where the teacher helped the students, and I remember I had a genius in my grade 11 class who was taking his master's in math in grade 11. He was finishing off his last semester. And so he would help Mr. Campbell think of other ways to approach the topic. In some ways, he had 7 ways to teach you something.
Right.
And if one of the 7 didn't click, well, maybe you really weren't gifted for math ever.
Right.
But it was about seeing it from a fresh perspective. So I'm challenged by chronic illness or threatened. Threatened is helpless and hopeless, fair enough to visit, lousy place to live. Challenged is, what can I do to minimize this?
Right.
What do I eat? How do I exercise? What do I watch?
Who's on my team? Because I think, Todd,
Support
we
team.
talk here a lot about, which is why we bring people like you onto the show, because we need to create a robust team. We always say we're better together. So when you're talking about reframing, you know, and I've suffered with very serious chronic illness myself, and I loved what you just said. You know, you have a threatening illness or you have challenges. But we need to have a team to help us because we can't do this alone. So if something hasn't worked properly, and we do have to take ownership. It's not the teacher's responsibility, and I don't think that was your message.
No.
It's not the teacher's responsibility to find a way to teach you differently. We together have to actively find ways to have a team around us to flex that resiliency muscle and fail forward. If something you tried, I'm sure the things that you're doing, even though you help others build the resiliency muscle, you're still learning yourself by failing forward.
All the time.
Yeah.
My diabetes, because of my health issues in the past, I have a shortened digestive tract. So one of the meds doesn't work for me because my digestive tract's too fast.
Right.
Meds in, it's a delicate spot, listeners of yours. Meds out sometimes.
Right.
Oh, it's supposed to last 12 hours.
Right.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
So I have been teaching my clinic. I'm the first one they've ever had that survived cancer of my intensity and duration with this shortened track. So I say to the doctor, here's how I view the science, the math, the biology. And they make notes. I'm not that smart, but I'm not stupid, so I've been paying attention.
You're listening to your body
I
too.
talked to 3 nutritionists because I want to have the best experience. I want to live fully until I don't.
Right.
So I always joke that I want to make it to 101, and then I'll decide whether 111 is possible with decent health.
Yeah.
But you're taking control of that and actually being an active participant,
Yes.
which we talk about a lot here. About
Really important.
who's on your team and how do we surround ourselves with these ideas?
How do we listen, and do they judge me? And if they judge me too hard, I don't mind pushback because I need it. I learn.
Right.
But if they judge me too hard, I don't need to be beat up.
Right.
I can balance a checkbook, but sometimes I need help with resiliency and learning some of those coping strategies so that when I'm in a moment of crisis or what I think is crisis, it's really not crisis. It's a learning opportunity and a way to strengthen myself with resolve for future
Absolutely.
incidents.
And I think sometimes, we've talked about self-care. I also want to bring up, and I'd like your perspective on this, is something that we hear a lot about, and I'm sure a lot of people think it's quite woo-woo, but that's self-love.
Yeah.
We beat ourselves up a lot when we're going through a very difficult time, whether it's mentally or physically, emotionally, financially, wherever you are at, and you're really struggling. And you try to be resilient, and you try to be positive, and you're just not there.
The tank is empty.
Right.
Yep, fumes.
We blame ourselves, and we're hard on ourselves.
Yes.
And sometimes we need to sit where we are and be, but recognize with the team around us and the tools that we have that we can get to that next step. Would you agree that self-love is an important ingredient to resilience?
Very, very important. I've heard it called self-culture. I call it self-definition. But what's the baseline? I work with long-term unemployed. Some of them have been at work for 14 years.
Wow.
But I remember a gentleman on first day, I got them for 14 days, 12 days, depending on the course, over the course of 50 weeks while they came back for retraining. And I remember the one man on first day, at the end of the class, everybody left. And he said, I'm really excited to be here because I've been fighting mental health issues for 10 years. But in the last couple of years, the meds are working well. We got the right cocktail of them. And I'm going to find a job and you're going to help. And I'm thinking, wow.
Great attitude.
That's him being excited. God bless him for the courage to share.
Absolutely.
And he was one of the first ones to get a job. And I remember him by the end of the year, his meds were working a little more and he was being social because he was out more. He lifted himself up a little more with help. I got a job and I doubled my income
Fantastic.
from before.
It's doable.
It's
hard
doable.
work.
Yep.
It's hard work, and we need to link arms together, and we need to believe in
Together.
ourselves.
Yep.
But we're better together, and it can actually make a difference. So, because we're going to run out of time,
Sure.
I know, we'll have you back on the show, Michael, but I also want to give a resource out there.
Yes.
Can you tell us one of your favorite books?
Yes. Well, resiliency is a journey. It's a process, too.
Right.
One of my favorite books is by a gentleman called George Leonard, and his book is Mastery. And I like it for a few reasons. It's short and concise. I don't want to read a 500-page book on how to be resilient. Mastery is about the process. So
Right.
when I first got on rollerblades, my friends, some of them said, but you're old. I was 40 at the time. I said, no, I'm getting rollerblades because I don't feel old. To quote Betty White, who was 90 or 80 at the time, I'm just older than I used to be.
Yes, indeed.
So Mastery was about, I found there was a video you could buy that gave you lessons on how to be resilient, how to rollerblade. So the guy said, if you bring the tape back, it was a tape.
Yes.
You bring the tape back, and bring back the blades, show me you've been practicing, because it was going to scuff them up. They were teaching you how to jump curbs, how to fall left, fall right,
Yep.
how to jump over objects in case something came out in front of you. I'll give you your money back. Because I want you to buy another set of blades in 3 years, and I want a long-time customer, not you broke your ankle, you gave up.
Right.
Wow, good business. I bought 4 sets of blades off him.
Fantastic.
So Mastery is about the process of becoming more whatever.
Right.
A better rollerblader, a better emotional intelligence person,
Whatever your goal is.
Yep.
And I do love basically the message behind that is progression, not perfection.
Yes.
And we often just stay stuck.
I'm
Because if
trying
we
to
can't,
yep.
right?
Yep.
And I am the first to admit, I can be hard on myself and perfectionist, and that can paralyze me because, well, what if? But what I've learned so much, and boy, oh boy, does your world open up when progress, not perfection,
Yep.
failing forward, and mastering the
Yes.
skills to
Yes.
flex that resilience muscle
'Cause
is
they
what
grow.
we need. They do grow.
Any age.
Absolutely. It's never too late. Before we wrap up here soon, we always like to ask a guest, find out something we don't know about.
Yeah,
Oh.
what's one thing that our audience would like to know about you that perhaps
Maybe they don't know.
Yeah.
Well, not many know. My family knows. I was going to be a professional musician because I was good, except that several groups told me that I had excellent performance skills and was very lame or weak in music skills. And with hindsight, if I had listened more clear, I got great clarity from one of Canada's leading academic institutions that I had very good performance skills and would make an exceptional teacher, which I actually had taught music. And I didn't
Interesting.
listen because it was all or nothing, baby. I was all in.
Right.
I came back a second year, got the same message from 3 leading institutions, and I just folded my house of cards.
Could have
and
been
went somewhere
another
else.
career for you.
Could have been, but it doesn't mean I can't take composition.
And there's still
I
time
have
to-
plans.
There's still time for a music career as well.
Indeed. Well, I am sure that we're going to get lots of feedback about this because it was certainly a topic that many wanted to hear about. We really appreciate you coming on, Let's Just Do This, sharing your story authentically, and also some of your tools in your toolbox to help
Thank
with
you.
resilience. Now, if people want to find out more about you, they can find you.
On the web, it's www.resiliencforlife.com, so RESILIENCYFORLIFE, and or Twitter, Resilient Michael, or Facebook, or
Just
Year
many
round.
ways to connect with you. And of course, if you want more information about anything you see here on Let's Just Do This, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You can drop us an email. Or, you know what, just come and join us here in the studio.
Grab us on the street.
Yeah, grab us on the street. That's another great way to connect with us. No, we do want to hear from you, and we're always are always willing to connect you to chain makers so that you can live your best life. So on behalf of Todd Miller and myself, Margaret Wallace Duffy, and the entire team here at Your TV and Wow New Media, we are so thrilled to be coming into your homes every week. We look forward to connecting with you online, on air, on demand, and face-to-face. So until next time, flex that resilience muscle, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. Be well.